Hey everybody, it is Tuesdays with Alvin. Welcome to the stream. Today we've got a couple new pens to show off and a whole lot of new inks. So it's a little bit slow still for the pens, but we've got some awesome new inks to show off today. So if you guys have any questions or comments, definitely let them or leave them in the chat and I can do my best to answer anything. Or I can have my moderator answer as well. Let's go ahead and just wait for everyone to join in. How's everybody doing? Oh, shoot. Just one moment, y'all. I'll just take you with me. I gotta grab my notebook. How's everyone doing today? Smallest Turtle, how's it going? I think you commented on our YouTube page, no? Where's my notebook at? Here we go. I found it. It is Wednesday. Yeah, we didn't have the time in the schedule yesterday. So today is Tuesdays with Alvin on Wednesday. Smallest Turtle, that's awesome. I think I just responded to your comment this morning. Okay. Jam, we are located in downtown Chicago off Franklin and Lake. We're like in the northwest end of the loop in the financial district. Weekday with Alvin as available. Yeah, maybe we should change my name to that. Greetings from Houston Airport. You're coming back. Well, get on that blue line when you get back and come straight to us. You probably won't get here in time. All right, let's go ahead and switch my camera real quick. And tilt this down. Sweet, so I've got two new pens to show off this week. Let's go ahead and start with this beauty. This is the newest limited edition Aurora 888 called the Baia. So this pen is inspired by Baia, which is also known as the Atlanta Italiana. It's an ancient submerged Roman city. So this is a city that was once an incredibly popular kind of beachside resort city in ancient Rome, but in modern times that city is actually now fully submerged in the Mediterranean Sea, if I'm not mistaken. So the ruins of Baia included villas, thermal springs, and different art, mainly mosaics. And it was originally a holiday resort for the rich and ruling class, the aristocrats of ancient Rome. So this pen is directly inspired by that. You can tell by the very deep blue ocean kind of look, or I guess sea for the Mediterranean Sea. Neurolotus, what's up? Salad, how's it going? Thanks for the compliment. Hey there. So this pen here, it's limited to 888 units. So you can see this one right here. Your number for the pen is going to be engraved in that top part of the cap. So this one here is number 175 of 888. Underneath here, we have an 18 karat gold nib made entirely in-house by Aurora and a full ebonite feed. So it's very interesting the way that Aurora makes their nibs and their pens. You know, when they make their resins, they actually keep a lot of the resin in a storage room. It's kind of like a wine cellar where they'll kind of mass store any of the rods that they've basically ever made. And that reasoning is that they really want to take care of your pen for its entire lifetime. For example, if we were to accidentally break the barrel or the cap of the pen, what Aurora would do is that they would actually remake the entire part that's broken. The reason that they do that is because, for example, let's say the cap breaks, right? If the cap breaks and they just try to take a new cap, chances are it's not going to fit absolutely flawlessly, and then you may have some discrepancies in terms of like the color or the patterning, anything like that. So Aurora likes to actually keep stock of any of their old resins so that if something happens, say like 15 years from now, 20 years from now, they'll still be able to rectify the problem and make you brand new components that are going to fit flawlessly. On top of that, Aurora is also one of the few brands that is still making their own nibs. Aurora actually goes truly above and beyond by actually mixing their own gold. So for their 14 and 18 karat gold alloys, they're actually mixing them themselves using a very specific amount of copper, gold, and other components to get the exact feel and exact kind of sensation that you would expect from an Aurora. So when you get an Aurora nib, you know that Aurora has taken care of this nib literally from just the raw material. Oh yeah, it is truly incredible to see. So the fact that Aurora does that is quite impressive. If you guys are really into Aurora, something else that they do that is not really too well known about is that Aurora actually offers one of the most comprehensive lines of nibs on the market. They have a whole signature series of nibs that you can request to have on the pen. That's something that we and our distributors, Kenro Industries, would love to work with you guys with. So if you have found just a very special Aurora and you want, a very particular nib on it, you can actually reach out to us and we can work with you guys on getting that nib. Some of the cool nibs that Aurora offers is Flex Nib, which actually has a totally different profile to their standard nib. The tines are kind of longer and skinnier on their Flex Nib. If you guys are curious on how that writes, I know that like Aiden Bernal on Instagram has one, and he's always got great handwriting. They also do like in-house like architect nibs, in-house like cursive italics, basically whatever you want they can make it. They have one of the most talented nibmeisters on their team, so sky's the limit with that. So it's a really cool feature for Aurora. At the end of the day, out of all of the pens, in the shop, Aurora is truly, from, their, entry-level models to the top of the line Auroras. They are all writer's pens. They are designed to be kind of an everyday writing pen no matter what. So you are getting that all throughout, no matter which Aurora you get. You thought this was clickbait? The title of the live stream wasn't very clickbaity, I don't think, but I know we post videos before the streams, so maybe that one was a little bit more. This one is a full piston filler. Aurora also has quite a unique piston mechanism. I don't know if you guys can see that. The glare is... Here, let me turn off the light. So that little black component that you can see right there is actually the stem of the feed. So the stem of the feed actually goes fully into the ink reservoir. You can kind of see how it pokes through the plastic there. And what that allows for is if we now bring this piston all the way down, you can see that the piston actually totally covers that feed stem. So when you're actually filling up this pen, kind of by the time you get past the ink window, you're already drawing so much pressure upwards that you get a much fuller fill with the Aurora pens. So if you guys aren't familiar with fountain pens or piston filling pens, basically you would stick this pen into a bottle of ink, and the entire barrel is going to fill up with ink. There's about 1.5 milliliter capacity, I believe, for Aurora, so it's quite impressive. You would definitely be able to write with this pen, for many, many weeks, perhaps even many months, obviously depending on how much you're writing. But this is the Aurora 888, known for that classic cigar shape. I actually have my personal Aurora on me today. This is the Aurora Optima in Emerald. You can kind of see that ink window right there. So this is what it'll look like with ink. Kind of see that in there. You can see that this one's got these exposed yellow gold and 14 karat. So all of Aurora's standard lineup has 14 karat gold nibs. This one is, I believe, rhodium plated, 18 karat. So the 18 karat gold nib is going to be a little bit softer. You can see there's just a little bit of bounce. It's really not a flex nib, so it just kind of gives you a little bit more of a buttery sensation, I guess. But you're really not meant to kind of push on any of these nibs unless, of course, you get the flex nib. Oh, yeah. This is like a key requirement to me, is that the appointments match the nib. You know, if you're going to put metal on a pen, put one metal on the pen, or one color of metal, or unless, you know, you're doing something really tasteful like a two-tone or a three-tone. Oh, what ink? I have Colorverse Dirty Red in this pen currently. Here's my notes. It looks like this. You can see I messed up my notes a little bit there. And there's the price point. So the Aurora 888 Baia limited edition goes for $805.50. You can get that right now on atlasstationers.com. If you guys are interested in purchasing any pen or any product on atlasstationers.com, you can take advantage of the discount code TikTok at checkout. That will give you 10% off of your whole order. There's a couple of exclusions which you can find on our website, but that 10% discount's pretty much good for everything. Chop Almond says, what's your daily driver? Recently, it has been the Aurora Optima. I really like using this pen for everyday use. You know, like I was saying earlier, Aurora is truly a writer's pen. So this pen is just super convenient for me. It's very easy to pick up and take notes. You know, relatively short churns on the cap. Let's see here if we... Yeah, it's about 1 1/4 churns, which isn't so bad. And then it's just a really lightweight pen. You know, if I'm not posting the pen, it's very comfortable. If I do post the pen, it's still just as balanced. You know, it doesn't really make it back-weighted at all, in my opinion. So it's just truly a good writer's pen. If you guys are interested in the Aurora Optima, we have these on atlasstationers.com for about $556 as well. Oh yeah, absolutely gorgeous. This one is truly immaculate, and this one is just absolutely gorgeous too. You know, these limited edition resins, they usually go a little bit above and beyond and have more special colors, whereas their standard colors are a little bit more plain, I guess. I wouldn't really call this one plain, but, you know, if you kind of compare the two, I would definitely say that this one's a little bit more special. If we really zoom in on the resin here, you can see that you have a lot more texture in these resin pieces here. It really looks almost like the pebbles that you would put on the bottom of an aquarium. I don't know if you guys have kept aquariums at all. I used to keep betta fish. Yeah, $805.50. Once again, this is the Aurora 888 Baia limited edition. It's funny, this pen reminds me of a dog that's in my neighborhood named Baia. The sweetest dog ever, so friendly. They always want to just like hop up and sit on my lap when I'm sitting on the porch. But whenever Baia is with their owner and not with the dog walker, she like acts like I don't exist. It's really funny. She'll just like pretend that nobody exists but her owner. It's really sweet. But when she's with her dog walker, she's super friendly with literally everyone in the neighborhood. Anyways, cool. Next up, we have a re-release that the world has been waiting on. Let's go ahead and take this off. So, if you guys didn't know, the Pilot Vanishing Point Decimo was recalled last year or maybe a year and a half ago because of an inconsistency they found on the inside components of the pen. I think that they were finding that some of the components were corroding, which is definitely very uncharacteristic of Pilot. The Vanishing Point is known for being one of the most robust and most reliable pens in Pilot's lineup. You know, they have been making the Pilot Vanishing Point since the 1970s. And even those vintage Namiki caplesses is what they used to be called. You know, they're still infinitely reliable. The clicker mechanisms always feel good. You can actually put modern nib units into the vintage pens. So to ensure, you know, that the product was truly a pen for life or a pen for multiple lives, they actually recalled the Decimos and the Pilot Vanishing Point LS to rectify those issues. And now they believe that the pen is going to be a great pen for your entire lifetime, and it is back on the market, which I'm so excited for. So the Pilot Vanishing Point Decimo is a slimmer version of the Pilot Vanishing Point with all of the same features. So what you get in the Decimo is a brass lacquered barrel. So underneath all of these components is solid brass, and then it's lacquered on top. The one I have in my hands today is the champagne. And then the entire pen is slimmer than a Vanishing Point. It's about the same length as a Vanishing Point, it's just skinnier. So for a lot of people, it's actually quite comfortable in the hand. You know, what I would have to say is the regular Vanishing Point's always gonna be my baby, but since these Decimos have come out, I've really kind of fallen in love with them. They feel really, really incredible in the hand. And of course, you get that beautiful 18 karat gold nib. So you get all the convenience of a ballpoint pen, but you don't compromise on your writing experience because you're getting that really soft 18 karat gold nib. Let's go ahead and show off what that nib looks like in its full state. So these are the three components of your Pilot Vanishing Point. You have the, you kind of have the back part of the barrel, the front part of the barrel, and the nib unit. Now, the nib unit is really all that you ever have to take care of. In my personal Vanishing Point, I really never clean these components, maybe a quick little rinse every now and again. But this is kind of where all the magic happens. So this is the full-size nib. You can see it's longer than you would think, but it's still quite tiny. We can see here this one is the Pilot 18 karat gold nib in medium. Fun fact about Pilot is they stamp the date of production for all of their nibs. So we can see right here that P122. That means that this nib was created in January of 2022. Pretty cool little fun fact. It's a great way to date your Pilot pens. Even though these are all modern, it's still cool to know exactly when the nib was made. In that nib unit, you do get a Pilot Con 40 included in the pen. So this is Pilot's standard converter. You can see here it's very straightforward. Piston goes down, piston goes up. Can't complain. It does have these little agitators. So something with fountain pen ink that can be a little tricky is sometimes the surface tension of the ink will just not allow it to just flow down steadily. So these little agitators just help make sure that it breaks up the surface tension enough for the pen to always flow until it runs dry. Of course, you can use Pilot cartridges with this pen. The pen will come with one cartridge to start with. And if you guys are interested, we have a full stock of Pilot cartridges, and we also now carry the Orochizuku cartridges, which were formerly exclusive to Japan, but have finally made their way over to the United States. So you can get Pilot Orochizuku cartridges as well. All right, I'm going to catch up on these comments real quick. I was thinking of putting Wearingeul White Rabbit in mine. That would be a really good combo if you got the champagne one. That would actually be a really beautiful combo. Naoto? I probably pronounced that way wrong. Tuning in when the Vanishing Point's on display. Oh yeah, this is the Vanishing Point Decimo, just so you know. It's the skinnier version of the Vanishing Point. What about Lamy? There's no new Lamys quite yet. We did get the release of the Petrol, the Petrol and the Lilac All-Stars, but I showed those off a couple streams ago. If you're interested in seeing those, I would check out the older streams on our YouTube page. And then any knowledge of when the TWSBI Ecos will be restocked? I'm not quite sure. Maybe the moderator will be able to answer that in the chat. You have 3 Decimos and 2 Rodin standard size. Ooh, dang, you're making me jealous. I really want a Rodin Vanishing Point, but I kind of want to get one. I kind of want to get one lacquered, like totally custom. I want to send a Vanishing Point to Bokumundo in Japan and do like a full custom lacquer job. That would be a dream of mine, but you know, probably a couple years out from something like that. Sweet. So the Pilot Vanishing Point Decimo is going to be available right now on atlasstationers.com for $160. I believe that we are already we're already sold out on a couple colors. So if you guys don't see the color that you want or the nib size that you want, just sign up for those restock notifications because the Decimo is now standard stock. So they are going to be coming in regularly. So if you missed out on this first batch, that's okay. Definitely just wait for that next batch. It'll be worthwhile. Oh yeah, $160. It's a great price for an 18 karat gold nib pen. It's one of the most affordable on the market. Sweet. All right, y'all. So now I have a ton of swatches to show off. I already swatched them all, so I don't have to spend too much time on the live doing that. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So first off, I believe I have 7 new colors for Robert Oster. So let's go ahead and go through them. So first off, we have Robert Oster Blood Moon. This is a really gorgeous blood red with a little bit of a brown tone to it. You can see when very heavily saturated, you can get a little bit of that black sheen out of it, which is kind of cool. But when you're actually writing, it doesn't come out too much. Really gorgeous blood red. The namesake obviously makes a lot of sense. I would say this ink is quite comparable to something like Diamine Oxblood, but a little bit more red than Oxblood. So, I love my reds. You guys should definitely have a good red fountain pen ink, so if you don't have one yet, this would be a good one. Yep, exactly, a less brown version of Oxblood. It's quite close, but you can definitely see there's more red tones that come out. Sweet. Next up, we have Robert Oster, New York City. I think the full name for this ink is NYC USA. I just wrote NYC. It's kind of self-explanatory at that point. Smallest Turtle, thanks for tuning in. A very gorgeous, true kind of royal blue with a little bit of red sheen. You can see there's just this halo of red sheen around the most saturated areas of the swatch. If you're actually looking at the text itself, it's a very stable blue, which is honestly great to see. We've been seeing so many blues with red sheenings last year that I think we need to stray away and kind of go back to just really beautiful blues. Really awesome. Named after one of the greatest cities in the entire world. This is Robert Oster, New York City. Looks a lot like Konpeki. How do you think it compares in person? I would say that Konpeki is just a touch brighter. A little, just like a hair into the turquoise, whereas this one is just a little bit more of a true blue. But yeah, if you were to compare the swatches side by side, they would be really, really close. Awesome. Next up, we have Robert Oster Australis Hydra. So this is a kind of a more turquoise, a little tealy. It's just like a touch teal. You know, I don't know if this really looks like it's showing up completely color accurate on the TikTok stream. It's just got this very slight teal tone to it right here. And once again, there's that little halo of red sheen, but in the text itself, you're gonna get relatively minimal sheening. You can see a little bit of sheening right here in the R, but that's kind of the extent. Just a little fringe if you're really looking closely, but not too much red sheening. So a nice kind of solid, deeper turquoise. A little bit on the teal side in the shading, which is really beautiful. Following along with the Australis series, we have Robert Oster Australis Rose. Australis Rose is this really nice dusty pink, but really leaning into the reds. You know, I really wouldn't call this a pink, but it's not quite red either. Really beautiful shading. It gets quite deep in certain areas. Once again, there is that fringe of black sheening, but you're not really getting that too much out of the ink. Maybe in the areas where it's most saturated, you just get those really, really deep reds, and then it gets into those lighter, dusty pinks. But quite a beautiful ink. All right, next up we have Robert Oster Australis T. This one really reminds me of like Oroshizuku Chikurin, but just a touch darker actually. It's a really beautiful kind of yellow-green. You can see that there is a yellow base to this ink, and then a really nice evenly shading green. Not a ton of shading, but enough to give you that really subtle kind of nice look. Once again, we're getting the tiniest bit of black sheening, but you're not really going to get too much of that out of the writing. Yeah, so Robert Oster is actually entirely based in Australia. They're all bottled in a kind of just-in-time production. So when Robert Oster... let me take a step back. So basically, when we place an order with Robert Oster, that is when they bottle the inks. So they're not bottling anything until an order is placed. The biggest advantage to that is you never really know sometimes how long a bottle of ink has been sitting on a shelf for. Something that really stands out with Robert Oster is that when you see a Robert Oster bottle on a shelf, you can be very confident that it has not sat on that shelf for very long, or it has not sat in a warehouse for any amount of time. So it's going to be very, very, very fresh. Not really something to worry about too much because, fountain pen inks can last years and years and years, no problem. But it's just nice to know that, you're getting an ink that is as fresh as possible from Robert Oster. Naoto says, mentioning Oroshizuku made me curious. Do you know anything close to Inaho currently? Let me get back to you on that. I think there's a couple inks that we have in our shop that are kind of close, but let me get an exact answer for you. Next up, we have Robert Oster Australis Oak. Now this one is just a really gorgeous kind of beige, darker brown. It's kind of showing up quite orange on the screen, so I don't know if that's just my screen, but it's just this really nice light brown. It almost gets into like an undyed leather color in the really lightly saturated areas. It's really gorgeous for that purpose. Once again, you're getting a very healthy amount of shading. It can sheen into the black, which gives you a lot of color variation where it's more saturated. Diamine is releasing a couple new colors in March. Will you have them? That's a great question for the moderator. But this is Robert Oster Australis Oak. Okay, and then next up we have a very special ink. This ink that I'm about to show you guys is exclusive to Atlas Stationers. So if you guys are interested in this ink, definitely hop onto the website and pick it up right away. You can only get this one here at Atlas, and that means it's probably going to go quite quickly. This is Robert Oster Polar Vortex, named after the 2019 snowstorm that completely took a stranglehold on the city. It was like negative 40-degree days. Nobody could really go to work, go to school, drive safely, anything like that. So we got to stay home, which was quite nice. This ink is a very gorgeous gray ink with a lot of pink base. So it kind of reads purple, but it's actually like a nice gray with a reddish, pinkish undertone. So you can see here where it's a little bit more of that gray, you still get that nice pink touch, or kind of almost like lavender touch. And then as we get into the shading, you can really see those deeper purples and that kind of undertone of pink. In the text, it reads pretty gray, which is really beautiful. I love gray inks, maybe the most out of all colors. Shades quite nicely as well. And even, I don't know if you guys can notice, but even in like these more saturated areas, like on this R or on the ST here, you do get a nice subtle pink undertone, which just really elevates the color. Squatch Trek, you should send us an email. There's potentially a chance we can get everything in one box if it's not too late. But definitely shoot us an email with your order number, and we'll try to take care of you. Sweet. So once again, this is an Atlas Stationers exclusive, so definitely try picking it up. Any of these Robert Oster inks that we showed off today are going to be available for just $18. It's an absolutely fantastic deal for 50 milliliters of ink. So 18 bucks, 50 milliliters, great deal. Really simple bottles, but really gorgeous. No frills. There we have it. Okay, let's go ahead and kind of condense those. And on to the next inks that just released. I have 3 new inks from Ferris Press here. I'll show off the pen once I'm done with these inks. Absolutely. So, all of these inks are inspired, of course, by New York City. The whole idea with Ferris Press was to take you on a trip around New York City. So we have 3 beautiful inks in this collection. The first one I have here is Ferris Press Grand Central Skies, a absolutely gorgeous mint green, kind of a seafoam green, if you may, with a very healthy amount of silver flake, of course. And you can see there is a significant amount of shading available in this ink. Oh, from this angle, you can really see you get that kind of seafoam green, and then you get a little bit more of that darker kind of dusty green, and it goes all the way into the emeralds here. So a lot of shading. In the text, you can see that shading really comes through. On any of my hairline strokes here, it's really, really lightly saturated. And as soon as we apply a little bit of pressure, you get those beautiful darker greens. So that is Ferris Press, Grand Central Skies. Next up, we have Central Park Greens, named after maybe the most famous city park in the world, Central Park. This one definitely has a lot more of that yellow, mossy tone to it. And once again, if you really are heavily saturating it, you can get a little bit of that black sheen, but you're not really going to get too much out of it in your writing. But this is a decent indicator that lets you know if you saturate these inks enough, it can get really, really dark and you can get a lot of shading out of it. Nturo Bang, I need a new pen that can accommodate shimmers better. TWSBI Eco, if you want something a little bit different, there's also the TWSBI Swipe or even the TWSBI Go. Any of those entry-level TWSBIs would be awesome for shimmer. Really easy to disassemble. It's a piston filler, so you can hold quite a lot of that ink, and you can also see how gorgeous the inks are in the pen. And then they're also super, super easy to clean out. So TWSBIs, the Eco, the Swipe, and the Goes start at $33 for the Ecos. The Swipes are about $28 or $29, and then the TWSBI Goes are even less, so very affordable. If you love a flex nib, I would maybe check out one of the OmniFlex nibs from Monteverde or Conklin. They're quite stiff for flex nibs, so people tend to move past them quite quickly. But another good option would be some of the elastic nib options from Leonardo, or my favorite recommendation is the Pilot Falcon for about $200. Quite expensive for a first flex nib, but it's going to be a flex pen for life. So Pilot Falcon's always my #1 recommendation. Okay, next up, we have Ferris Press Lights on Broadway. Really gorgeous, bright pink. I would call this ink fuchsia for sure. You do have a nice, healthy amount of shading here. You can see it's almost like a pastel pink, not quite. And then it does get quite deep, and it even gets into a bit of a red sheen, which is really gorgeous. Very subtly, once again, you're not really going to get that type of sheening out of this ink, but there is the possibility, especially if you're saturating your paper quite a lot. In the actual text, I didn't really find too much shading, actually. It's really even throughout. Just really subtly, you get little pools where it'll get into a deeper pink, but otherwise, it's actually quite even all throughout, which is a little bit understated nowadays. We have such a selection of of high shading inks or even high sheening inks. So to have inks that are just really beautiful and really stable throughout and you're not getting much sheening or shading is still nice to see, you know. Definitely don't sleep on these inks because they can be really reliable for journaling, for just everyday note taking, if you're in school or if you're in a meeting for work. Definitely don't sleep on those. Sweet. So this is the New York City set for Ferris Wheel Press. For the individual 38 milliliter bottles, you can get any of these inks for $22. You can also get the three vial charger set, which is a 5 milliliter sample of all of these inks for just $16, which you can find on atlasstationers.com. Next up, we have the limited or special edition, I guess you could call it, ink. This is the Ferris Wheel Press Workshop Wishes. I believe this ink is inspired by Pinocchio, actually. We saw, 3 Pinocchio movies come out last year, all around the same time. Tends to happen a lot. So this is Ferris Wheel Press's homage to the Pinocchio story. A really gorgeous brown with lots of shading. It's quite similar to like a Ferris Wheel Press's Oyster Hour, but a little bit more of a true brown rather than kind of that dustier gray tone. A lot of shading, of course, and a very healthy amount of shimmer. You can see just an absurd deposit right there and right there. You really can't even see the ink, it's just shimmering. In the text, you can see there is still an amazing amount of shading. Even in these lighter letters here, you get a lot of shading from the bottom to the tops of the letters. In our really heavy downstrokes, you can see it gets quite deep into like a saddle brown. Absolutely gorgeous. Awesome. So that is Ferris Wheel Press Workshop Wishes. This one's going to come in a 20 milliliter bottle. I believe it's about $25. Cool. And then finally for today's stream, we have 2 new Wearingeul inks. The first up here, we have Wearingeul. This is a very gorgeous baby blue. You can see it's almost like into the gray tones here. You do get that gray kind of chromatic effect here where it's really saturated. So you can see here, it's like a little bit lighter saturated, more saturated here where you get that darker blue, and where it's really saturated, it just does this amazing thing where it actually turns gray when it's heavily saturated. So really gorgeous from Wearingeul here. And you can see in the text, very even, but just really beautiful, subtle shading. It kind of reminds me of the color of like Cinderella's dress in a way. Quite gorgeous. And despite being a light ink, it's really well saturated. It's got a good viscosity to it. So if you guys are using dip pens or if you are using your inks for watercolor or ink washing, Wearingeul, their entire selection is going to be awesome for you. So available right now for $20. This is Wearingeul. And we've got one more here. The highly anticipated Wearingeul King Lear. King Lear is a gorgeous dusty green. The base green really reminds me a lot of like Jacques Herbin, their Vert Atlantide ink. It's that kind of lighter saturated gray undertone green with a rose gold flake, which you guys can see pockets of here. Just a really great color combo. If you guys are a fan of like of Dominant Industry Autumn Forest or Wearingeul Path, this would be a great kind of more subtle, more professional option. This ink is Wearingeul King Lear. You can find it right now on atlasstationers.com for just $20. Awesome. So all of these inks are available right now on atlasstationers.com, varying price points, so just check them out on the website. You can find everything that I show off on TikTok on the tab under the specials page. I have a tab called Tuesdays with Alvin where you can see anything that I show off. Makes it easy for y'all. Here we go. We'll do one little pan. I inked my Esterbrook stub with an ink that I don't like. Do you recommend I discard the ink or reuse it? Oh, that's a great question. Let me switch my camera real quick.
What do you like in your pizza?
Okay, so this is a great question, and this is a good kind of rule of thumb to carry for any ink that you guys are putting in a pen. When you ink up a pen, it's always very important to make sure that the pen is clean before inking it up, because we never want to introduce contaminants into the ink bottle. The ink bottles, a lot of the times they do contain antimicrobial agents to stop the development of any kind of nasties, any mold or anything like that. But any ink can possibly become molded or become kind of no good for use anymore. So I always recommend dumping the ink out, not putting it back in the bottle. But I remember you got that Esterbrook not very long ago, so if it hasn't been in the pen for very long, it's generally okay to put the ink back in the bottle, especially if it's like a full like piston filler fill or a full vacuum filler fill, because that's a lot of ink. But if it's just like a converter's worth, honestly, I would not risk contaminating the bottle, and I would just dump it out. I like to take like a scrap piece of paper, dump the ink onto that into the garbage can. I try not to put inks down the drain. Most of them are non-toxic, but we should really only be putting water down our drains. So yeah, that's what I do. Yeah, if you inked it last night, you should go ahead and just put it back in the bottle. It should be okay. A good tip for you guys is if you guys are inking a pen and you've owned a bottle of ink for some time,
There you go. That's going to be way better than...
what I like to do is open the ink bottle and waft it. So don't stick your nose in there, because sometimes if it is molded, it can be gross. Just give it a little waft, and if you guys ever smell your inks and they smell like rotten food, or you just smell like a really pungent kind of smell, like sometimes a chemically smell, or it just smells like not just like ink, kind of a subtle chemically smell, it is contaminated and you should just throw it out. It's really not worth using contaminated inks. If you put a contaminated ink into a pen and then you write with it, it can give you issues with the pen. And say you clean that pen out and then you dip it into another bottle of ink, well, there is a good possibility that if you didn't clean the pen fully, you could have just introduced that mold or, whatever's going on into a whole nother bottle of ink. So I always like to inspect my bottles just by giving them a little waft before I ink them up, especially because a lot of my ink bottles are getting quite old now. But yeah, it's a good little habit to make, to just give a little waft to make sure that your inks are always good. Sweet. Lock and Key says if you have a tiny extra bottle, it's also an option. Yep. You can get like watertight little sample vials for pretty inexpensive. I've seen a lot of people get them at just like medical wholesale shops, and it's a great to kind of keep a handful of those around for giving out inks, or for this sake, like putting an ink back into a vial to use later on. I like to use sample vials and then use them in a brush. Yep, I do that all the time. I love putting my inks into little cups and using them for watercolors or ink washes. Chris Martinez says, so always smell your milk and ink. Yeah, pretty much. I did show off a couple pens. I know someone asked about the Aurora, so let's go ahead and show that off one more time. Once again, y'all, this is the Aurora 888 in the colorway is called Baia. It's a limited edition ink. If you guys are curious, Baia is pronounced B-A-I-A, named after a ancient city that is now submerged underwater. The city was known for being a kind of resort destination for the ruling aristocratic class in ancient Rome. Really gorgeous mix of lighter blues and purple tones here. So you get these really nice light, almost pastel-y blue tones, and then here it's like very violet, very purple. with that 18 karat gold nib. Once again, this pen is available on atlasstationers.com for $805.50, limited to 888 units in the world, and you'll get that numbering on your cap. So we've got 175, pretty solid number. Sweet. All right, y'all, if anybody has any last minute questions, I can definitely answer them. Otherwise, I'm going to tune out for the day. If you guys can't get enough of me, of course, I will be on Instagram Live tomorrow at 3 p.m. On Instagram Live, I like to go in depth into very specific topics for people that are a little bit more used to the fountain pen world already. But even if you're a beginner, it's a show for everybody, so I would definitely check that out. Super Bowl pick, I don't know who's going to the Super Bowl, so Bespoke, whatever team you're rooting for, I'm rooting for you. Yeah, the painted in pen number is quite nice. Sometimes they just engrave the numbers, and then it can be really hard to read that engraving because there's no kind of contrast. So I really like that they actually fill the engraving. You asked, what pen do you like with a Fude nib? I've been hunting for a quality one lately. Honestly, my number one recommendation for a quality Fude nib would be to get one made for you. A lot of custom nib grinders do offer a Fude nib option, so I would recommend going that route, getting your favorite pen with like a number 6 size nib and get that Fude job done on it. That way it's made for you. You know, it's kind of tailor made for the way that you hold your pen. But otherwise, there's a bunch of Sailor Fude pens on the market. Sometimes they're hard to come by because the inexpensive Sailor Fude is not available in the US for the most part. So you can find them for like $20 on Amazon, I think. But I personally do not use Amazon at all. So I just am holding off on getting my own Fude with the Yovo number 6. I was actually just talking about that earlier today, so it's a good question. Sweet. All right, y'all. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's live stream. Of course, I'm live on TikTok every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Unless I'm not, then I'll be on Wednesday at 3 p.m., of course. And then, once again, I am on Instagram Live at 3 p.m. on Thursdays. And then last thing to end off on, use the discount code TikTok to get 10% off your order. Show me the $1,000 pen. It is the Aurora 888 right here. If you guys missed the beginning of the show, just wait for us to re-upload the entire stream on YouTube. You can go to our YouTube page and see all of our old streams. There's a lot of good content, a lot of good information in there. And, you know, it's in part thanks to you guys for asking such awesome questions. All right, that was enough of a Midwestern goodbye, I think. So this is for real. Peace, y'all. Till next week.